There are different customs regarding reciting Birkat Kohanim in a house of mourning. According to the Shibbolei HaLeket, a 13th century authority from Italy, Birkat Kohanim is not recited at all in a house of mourning. This was also the custom according to Rabbi Haim ben Venisti, an authority from Izmir, Turkey, during the 17th century. According to some, this is because a mourner does not greet people, and therefore he should not bless people with peace, which is similar to greeting people. Also, one does not greet a mourner, which perhaps explains the custom of those that omit Birkat Kohanim altogether in a house of mourning. However, according to many Mekubalim, even the mourners themselves can recite Birkat Kohanim if they are Kohanim. This is discussed by Rabbi Yaakov Sofer in his commentary to Shulchan Aruch, which is known as Kaf HaChaim, and it is based on the writings of Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, an 18th century master of Kabbalah, who is more commonly known as the Rashash. Now, even according to Halakha, a mourner may recite Birkat Kohanim. Refraining is a custom, which is not necessarily practiced by all of the Mekubalim. There is also a third custom, which is that Birkat Kohanim is recited in the house of mourning, but if the mourners themselves are Kohanim, they walk out of the room before the Kohanim begin to go up. In Shulchan Aruch, Maran wrote, after the 7-day mourning period, mourners lift their hands, meaning they recite Birkat Kohanim. Then Maran continued, but during the 7-day mourning period, a mourner who is a Kohen should leave the synagogue when Kohanim are called. So Maran did accept the custom, but since he only spoke about the mourners themselves, it is understood that other Kohanim do recite Birkat Kohanim in a mourner's house, as Maran did not stipulate any restriction about that case. So what was the custom at Halab? Did the mourners recite Birkat Kohanim during the 7-day mourning period or not? And if they didn't, did other Kohanim recite Birkat Kohanim in the house of mourning or not? Rabbi Eliyahu Mish'an, an important Mikubal in Halab during the 19th century, wrote in his book Sedek V'Shalom, the custom in our city, Aram Soba, is to bless Birkat Kohanim in the mourner's house, the other Kohanim who are not mourners, but not the mourner himself. So from here we see that the custom in Halab was like Maran. The mourner does not recite Birkat Kohanim during the 7-day mourning period, but only the mourners are restricted. The other Kohanim do recite Birkat Kohanim in the mourner's house. This was also recorded as the custom of Halab in the book Derech Eretz, and it is also the custom in our community, and was recorded by Meir Safalev Shalom in his book known as Meir Or. He wrote, Birkat Kohanim is said in the house of mourning, but if the mourner himself is a Kohen, he should not participate. Rather, he should leave the room before the Hazan reaches the Ritzeh and the repetition of the Amidah. Now what about when the mourner is in the synagogue on Shabbat? On Shabbat, public displays of mourning are prohibited. Should the mourner recite Birkat Kohanim in the synagogue on Shabbat in order to avoid a public display of mourning? According to Arking Joseph Harari, if there are other Kohanim in the synagogue, it is not an issue, so he may walk out before Ritzeh in order to avoid reciting Birkat Kohanim. However, some other authorities do not differentiate between whether other Kohanim are there or not. Some say that mourners recite Birkat Kohanim on Shabbat even if other Kohanim are there. But others say that even if there are no other Kohanim, the mourner should walk out before Ritzeh, meaning that since the Kohen isn't in the room when it's time for Kohanim, it's not considered a public display of mourning. And this is also the custom in our community, as recorded by Meir Saf in Meir Or. Even on Shabbat, the mourner does not recite Birkat Kohanim, whether or not other Kohanim are there. This custom was also recorded by Rabbi Haim ben Venisti in his work known as Knesset HaGedolah, and in the authoritative 18th century Shabbat Sidur, known as Bet Menuha. According to Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel Ashkenazi, the author of that Sidur, when Maran wrote that mourners do not recite Birkat Kohanim for 7 days, Maran did not differentiate between weekdays and Shabbat. Furthermore, the custom of mourners not reciting Birkat Kohanim on Shabbat, even when there are no other Kohanim present, was recorded by Rabbi Rafael Aharon ben Shimon in his work known as Nehar Mitzrayim on the customs of Egypt. So we do recite Birkat Kohanim in a house of mourning, but the mourners themselves do not recite Birkat Kohanim during the 7-day mourning period, whether it's a weekday or Shabbat, whether other Kohanim are present or not. In all cases, if the mourners are Kohanim, they leave the room before the Hazan gets up to Ritzeh.